Hello, again. We're back, and this video we're talking about. Let's see, where was I? This is going to be based around a housing project that I lived at starting in 1980. When I was about 7 years old. And this place took up, I mean, it was only a few years, but it was really a lot of formative years, I think, for me. And there's a lot that happened there that really steered the ship in particular directions. Yeah, really a whole lot. So I'm going to try to touch on those, and I guess if I go on too much of a tangent, then I can just make multiple movies, and I'll try to keep them as cleanly titled as possible. So yeah, there. I don't know why I just wanted to kind of talk that out loud. Sorry, I've got some itches. Okay, so my mom had started dating a man named Tim Seavey, and he was the first man that my mom had at least brought around to the house, or to our lives. I don't recall ever seeing her with a man prior to this. My brother might, since my brother's 5 years older than me, he might have other things to say about that, but these are my videos, not his. So I'm not really sure, but as far as I'm concerned, she didn't date until she met this man, Tim. And since the living arrangement at Bridge Street was so tenuous and was so crowded, that when they were dating and getting along, moving in together seems, I guess, a good next step, I guess. I didn't know a whole lot about him at this time, but what I did know, he was kind of goofy, which I liked, and talked a lot of nonsense, had a weird laugh, he was goofy, and I liked that about him. So early on, we had a I don't want to say, I mean, I liked him a lot, and it was an interesting dynamic. And since I never had a a man in my life, it was a different it was a different feeling, to be it's a different kind of energy, and I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. So we moved from Bridge Street into an apartment at this housing project. This housing project was it was essentially a row of, I guess you would call them townhouses, a row of townhouses, like 10 in a row, and all kind of based around a parking lot. And there were several of these little like areas where there was like a big parking lot, and there was a string of townhouses and a string of townhouses and a string of townhouses, and then there was several of those, like 4, maybe 5, and they weren't all quite that big, but the one that we ended up moving into was where there was we lived in a string of about 10. Next to us, running perpendicular, was I think a string of maybe 6, and then across the parking lot from us was another string of maybe 8, and so the apartment that we lived in was 2 floors, 2 bedrooms, and it was fine. I mean, it was the whole project was, I mean, it was a ghetto project, and I mean, you know, like, from what I understand, it was originally built for Navy families, but that wasn't what it had been used for so much after Vietnam, so it was sold off or something. I don't know. I'm too young to know the details of the rent and the leasing or whatever. But you know, it was low income. Everybody that lived there that I knew, that I grew up with, were low income. It was, you know, on Saturdays there was always like somebody working on a muscle car in the parking lot, playing heavy metal and screaming at their wife or whatever. Like, it was always like a bunch of kids kind of running around lawlessly. There was the kids in my direct area in that parking lot. There were about probably 9 or 10 of us, but we ranged in age from probably 2nd, 3rd grade, which is where I was at, up to probably 9th, 10th grade. So it was a bit crazy, but this is 1980, so times were crazy anyway. It wouldn't be weird to see a 15-year-old kid smoking. Like that was totally a normal thing to do. Sorry. But there's a big age range, so there's weird stuff sometimes. Like I think I probably saw my first Playboy magazine because one of the older kids had a slightly older brother that gave it to him. I probably at some time during this, maybe not third grade, but a little bit more, we would be like stealing one of our parents' cigarettes because most of our parents smoked, and we would go into the woods behind one of the buildings and smoke cigarettes. It was I mean, it was like that, and it sounds. I mean, it felt romantic, I guess. Like it felt cool, and it felt important to have that. So moving on, one of the more formative things that I was around, starting off when we moved there in 1980 when I was 7, was our next door neighbor was an older guy named Murray, and he had a daughter that was, I think, in 11th grade or 12th grade, so 16, 17, and Murray was a drinker. Like, he would always be shit-faced when you saw him. He would sit on his stoop and drink quite a lot. He would work on his truck or something. I remember him being outside quite a lot, which, it doesn't really matter. I think that maybe his daughter's name was Lisa, but I'm not positive. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is because this girl had a boyfriend whose name was Tony, and Tony came from a big Italian family. I ended up being friends with his younger brother, Angelo, and but Tony. Oh, it was Tina, not Lisa. Sorry, Tina is Murray's daughter. So Tony and Lisa were dating, I guess, all through high school. I distinctly remember them going to their senior prom and, hiring a limo and having tuxes and whatnot, typical like senior prom stuff. And they ended up getting married shortly after high school, and they ended up getting an apartment right in that same block. And then it became Tony sitting out on the stoop, drinking, getting shit-faced every weekend, and being an asshole. Not just in general, but like actually like treating Tina badly, being abusive, both physically and verbally. And it was bad, and it was probably not, it's probably not the most, like the first time I'd seen something toxic like that, because Chad and Will's mother, Sharon, who we had lived with on Bridge Street, she was toxic as fuck, and she did not treat her kids well. But I'm sure it had an effect on me, but it's not really part of anything bigger. It was just, that was just their fucking thing, and I think I was too young to really like latch onto it. But this relationship, Tony and Tina, their relationship, I was at the right age to latch onto, and it was horrific. And having my mom having lived through that, it was triggering for my mom. Okay, so I lost my place a little bit, but try to get back to it. So it was very hard for my mom to see this happening, especially when she had escaped it so recently. The abuse between Tony and Tina. Tim, at the time, I didn't know much about what was going on. As I said, I thought Tim was kind of goofy and fun and whatnot. But it turned out that he was an extremely frequent weed smoker. And I'll get more to Tim, probably not in this video, but the next video. I just wanted to touch on Tony and Tina first as a kind of kickoff to Northwood Court. So Tim wasn't much he wasn't much help, and he didn't really care that Tony and Tina's relationship was triggering to my mom. It didn't really affect him in any way whatsoever. And while, again, I was young, but I saw it happening in real time, and I saw how it affected my mom, and it had a big effect on me, even though I probably didn't. I wasn't part of any of it directly, I guess is what I'm saying. So it kind of came to a head or, I could be misremembering it. It could be I was 7, so, but the what really is the what really is what everything came to a point in my mind looking back. There was a afternoon where Tony was shit-faced, and my mom had invited Tina over to our house to play cards, really to try to get her out of the house, but under the guise of socializing. And Tony had gone off to the bar or something to get more shit-faced, and I distinctly remember him coming back and ordering Tina to go, and my mom kind of instinctively stood in between them and tried to suggest that Tony go home and sleep it off, go home and take a nap, or sober up. And Tim was sitting there, and he didn't do anything. And I remember being really scared for my mom, because she was so much smaller than Tony. And it was a big thing. And my mom, without getting into an altercation, was able to kind of talk him down and get him to leave without taking Tina with him. And I think that was the first time that I had seen an actual altercation. The first time that I had seen two people in a fight. And of course it didn't get to be a physical fight, but it was definitely my mom standing up to this drunk guy when he was angrily trying to grab his wife and pull her home, because my mom was scared that he was going to beat the shit out of her. He had done it before at this point, and she was scared that he was going to do it again. Unfortunately, that wasn't the last time, but that was the day that the cops were called and he did go to jail that night, because if I remember correctly, my mom walked Tina over there because she wanted to go home, and somehow gave her the bravery, the courage to come back to my mom if something went wrong. And I remember that night her coming back to our door and having a bloody nose and crying, and she came into the house and my mom sat her down and I remember Tony banging on the front door and saying to get Tina outside, and my mom telling him to fuck off. And she called the cops for Tina, and this was the time that Tina pressed charges against Tony, and it might not have been the last time. I don't really recall if it was, or if I'm just, mashing together in my childhood brain. But she did eventually divorce and leave him. So there's that. And my mom hated that man so much, and he hated my mom for sticking her nose in, and he blamed my mom for the eventual dissolution of his marriage. There was a short amount of time when I think in third grade, when Angela was told that he wasn't allowed to play with me, but it didn't matter. Nobody listened to what their parents said in my circles anyway. So that never stuck. But it was a thing for a while, and his whole family blamed my mom for their divorce, pretty much. And my mom, it never shook her. She knew that she had to do something, and she did it. And I think that from what I understand now as an adult, and after conversations that I had with my mom, I think that getting away from my dad was such a hard thing to do that she eventually was able, it became a thing. It became a thing that she would not stand idle by and watch happen to somebody else. And I mean, that was not the first time that she became my hero, but it was like the first tangible like reason that I could speak to that she became my hero. Became somebody that I honestly looked up to for the tangible reason, not just because she was, my mother and caregiver. And she remains that way for her whole life. And one of the many things that I appreciated about her. So there we go. We started Northwood Court, 1980, 7 years old. We're gonna kind of dig deeper down, talk more about Tim. I think next is what I'm gonna do. Talk more about Guy to kind of give you an idea of who he is and where he is. Talk about my mom some more and her relationship to us and to Tim, and some various other things that come up in the, I think, 3rd through 5th grade roughly, so like 2.5, 3 years I think we were at Northwood Court. But it's going to be over a couple of different videos, because it's like this one, sometimes the stories are going to be long. So with that said, Jasmine, Jack, Silas, I love you guys. I hope that you're getting something out of this. I mean, I think I'm getting a lot out of the oral history, telling the oral history. I'm getting a lot out of telling the stories. So I'm going to keep on doing it. And I love you guys. And to anyone else who might have stumbled upon these and are watching them for some reason, please feel free to go back to the introduction, and you'll learn more about me and about why I'm doing this. And I'll see you in the next video.